Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. I didn't have a lot to talk about today, but I thought let me come on and at least talk about something that I came across today, which was actually interesting and surprising. And it had to do with watch jewels, because I realized that there are people who are quite informed in watches in certain ways, but not necessarily in others. And I was talking to a colleague of mine who collects watches, a friend actually. He's a good guy, and he went, didn't know what the jewels in a watch were used for. And interestingly enough, I was at a bar, and the person to my right, we were he had talked about, putting jewels on the outside of a watch to increase its value, blinging it out or whatever. And my friend on my left thought we were talking about the jewels inside the watch. And when I explained to the man on my right that he had meant that he understood him to have been talking about internal jewels, he was also interested. And so I explained to them both, that jewels are used as the pivot points to protect the pivot points in a watch movement, because then it's metal on jewel uh, instead of metal on metal, because metal on metal has a different wear profile, as it were. And lubricated metal on jewel can last for quite a long time and maintain precision, as we all know. And I realize a lot of people don't realize that when they say watch has got XYZ number of jewels, that those are the number of pivot points that are protected within that watch. You know, um, Watch check. By the way, I'm wearing my JLC Polaris on the factory rubber strap. Since I've gotten the factory rubber, I've pretty much worn it exclusively on it because it works so well on the piece. And I like rubber straps because they give you a lot of latitude of casual wear. And I have other watches that I would wear with a suit than this piece. Although I do have a blue alligator strap, that leather strap that does fit it, that I would wear if I did wear it with a suit. But I would probably swap out for maybe the black alligator from my Zenith El Primero. I often do that, swap straps between watches depending on what I'm going to do, or how I think they look. For example, I on my IWC uh, Saint Supri, I've got my Rado brown alligator strap because it looks better than the factory IWC strap, which I still have, but I've been wearing that strap on my Mission to Saturn moon swatch. But as I've said many, many times, you change your strap, change your watch. You have a watch and three, four straps, you've got three, four different watches, at least when it comes to mixing and matching with your wardrobe. So how's it going, Johnny? Let's see. And the thing about jewels also, there are other functionalities of a watch that people don't know, and that's why I have a playlist on the channel, Watch Basics, where I do cover quite a few watch basics. But I realized I never explained what jewels did, and basically, yeah, jewels are just ways to protect the pivot points in a movement against wear. So theoretically, the more jewels, the more pivot points are protected, the longer the watch will work well and be accurate, uh, because more of the moving parts are protected against excessive wear of metal to metal contact. So, there are a lot of people, for example, when you say it's a column wheel chronograph, they say, okay, sure, that means it's better. But, um, and I do talk about that in the Watch Basics playlist, but a lot of people don't realize why a column wheel is better than a cam based system, even though cam based systems can be quite robust. The base value 7750 is a cam, and Longines, their master collection, um, Etta makes for them a column wheel version. So, like, if you get and there is a video on me in the archive. Um, we talk about the moon phase triple date Longines master chronograph. Actually, it's also a chronograph. It's a column wheel chronograph, so it's a value 7751 movement with a column wheel instead of a cam, and it does feel differently. It feels it does have a different feel than the other value 7751 in the Longines stable, the um, Conquest. And because there's also a triple date moon phase in that series, and it is loomed, and but it's a cam, not a column wheel, and it's a display back, so you can actually see that. And there's a video on that one as well. I actually had both of those run through my collection. Um, they're both very busy watches, and I think Breitling does a better job at making busy legible in that sense. The Master Collection moon phase triple date had polished steel hands, beautifully polished steel hands, and it was hard to tell which hands were the keeping ones. In the case of the Conquest, um, because it was more of a sports watch, the face was felt a little more crowded by the case in that sense. And to me, a watch that is that busy should have a more open face, like the Navitimer. You know, this has got a very open face and is a very clean, simple design. You know, it it's like balancing the white space on a page with the text and images in a photo layout or something. Johnny, how many jewels does my Chime pocket watch have? Um, well, the the sound is made by little hammers that pivot and bang on it. I think those are on straight metal pivots because those don't need they need more robustness than they need to be lightweight and high tolerance. They're still reasonably high tolerance, but the pivots for the hammers are it's more of a mechanical thing in the sense that yeah, you need something really robust for that, and they're probably and also compared to what a balance wheel does in the minutes and all that other, you might push a repeater 10 times a day. That would be excessive. Well, actually, it depends if you really need it. But let's say you push it 10 times a day. That's not 5 times a second, 6 times a second. When you think about the escapement or some of the other parts of the watch. So you can get away with the hammers being more robust because don't forget they're whacking on the gongs to make that sound. They need really robust pivot points. So they're usually metal pins. I don't think I've ever seen jeweled hammers, but somebody might correct me and send me a picture. But almost all the hammers I've seen are on metal pivots, straight metal, but those are also lubricated, and usually they're hardened sleeves or something on the pivot points. Not they're not just straight metal to metal. There is a bearing sleeve in the hammer's pivot construction. Brent, how's it going? How's it going? Johnny, in the old days, 1950, 1960s, a jeweled watch was more important. Oh, was more expensive. Yes, yes. Well, up until synthetic rubies were cheap and plentiful, they had to be milled and machined from or lathed from real, rubies. You basically took flawed rubies or cracked rubies or what's left over from the refining process and machined them down and use them. That's why a lot of watchmakers use those gold collars, gold chatons. They harken back to when the rubies weren't perfectly sized, and so they put gold collars on them to make sure that they were the right shape, roundness, and all to fit into the holes cleanly, the holes in the plate cleanly. So that's why Lange, you know, they that's why they have others too. Maurice Grossman, um, they'll put their primary jewels in gold collars and secure them with heat blued screws, um, which harken back to the old style of mounting the real rough rubies. They were polished and all, but they may have had slightly irregular edges because um, if you wear it down too much to make it round, then you don't have any ruby left. So you made sure it was flat on both sides and had the indentation for the pin for the pivot. The balance wheel nowadays has what they a shock mechanism. There's a little spring, leaf spring, in on top of the jewel that holds the balance wheel, and that's so that it can give just a little bit if you drop the watch, and that's why watches like that are considered shock absorbent. And the type of spring changes from some companies to companies. Omega has their own design, Rolex has their own design, and all. Um, Let me make sure something looks like double checking my power. It looks like I'm not, I may not be plugged in. Let me take a quick look, see. Yes, success. I did accidentally have it not plugged in. And well, I should have some power now. Because I would hate to have this thing die on me while we are chatting. Okay, it says now I'm plugged in. Good. What are you gonna do? Sound to image is fine. Thanks, Johnny. What I do now is I go ahead and I set the computer up within the hour and I just leave it on. Because sometimes if I sleep the computer and I turn it back on, the settings change somehow or whatever. It thinks if I don't remember to turn on the speaker first, it treats the microphone as a speaker, and crazy stuff happens because I'm a hardware guy, not a software guy. But thank you for confirming. Um, as I was saying, I don't have that much to talk about today, but I did want to point out about that aspect with jewels, that jewels are used to protect the points. Like, for example, my Mont Blanc Nicholas Rusek, that's got like 44 jewels in it. It's a chrono GMT, but they were really trying hard to get the watch industry to respect them as a watchmaker, and that was their first in-house movement. So yeah, they really went overboard. I shouldn't say overboard because it makes it a better movement. It has 40 some odd jewels in it in the one movement. Now, modular movements will also have a high jewel count because each module being made by a separate manufacturer or by the same manufacturer but intentionally as modules, they're going to have their own their own jewel count, as it were. So, like, for example, I had a Maurice Lacroix uh, annual calendar chrono. There's a video on it in the archive, and it had also some 48, 50 some odd jewels, but because it had three modules. It had a clock module, a chrono module, and an annual calendar module. Le Joufferet, I think, of one of those, or one of the other module makers. And the whole aspect of jewels and what they mean, the whole aspect of timekeeping, it is important to understand why these things are important, not just that they are important. And so I was really pleased to be able to educate these gentlemen about why jewels are important, because what they are used for. But a lot of people just simply think And I mean, it's a good indicator, right? Like, who cares how many microcontrollers are in your, Jehoshaphat or whatever? You just want your toaster to work. So to see on a watch in the old timey days, they would print 17 jewels on the face of the watch. I believe the 1963 Seagull with the Venus chrono movement in it has 17 jewels or some odd jewels on its face. It used to boast about the number of jewels in a watch, and now the low end watches go for as few jewels as they can get away with, 4, 6, sometimes as few as that many. Um, and the higher end obviously go for more because they know that people who collect care. The reason that the complaints about the PRX having a plastic escapement, for example, they're valid criticisms, but there are only a few other watches at that price point that can give you, a good mechanical movement. So, and with an 80-hour power reserve. So you have to kind of understand what you're getting into. Yes, it's more of a piece of jewelry. You could almost say it's a fashion watch, like Fossil or something. Although they use industry movements too. Not to to demean a fashion watch, they're giving you a lot for the money in some cases, and in the case of the PRX is giving you a lot of value for your money. And yes, it does have a plastic escapement, and frankly, I would rather that they didn't. It would be nicer if they didn't, but it doesn't take away from its primary function, that is to accurately tell the time mechanically and be easy to service, because actually the Powermatic 80 is like a modular construction. Instead of throwing away the whole movement, they may just swap out the escapement mechanism. You know, that's why they're you, you can design something to be thrown away, but if you don't have to throw it away, you're saving money every time you don't throw it away. So let's see. Johnny, I'm getting an old Yema. Oh, Yema, see, nice company. French, if I'm not mistaken, and really nice long heritage, making some excellent watches. Getting an old Yema with a telemeter dial. Okay, that's the time to, flash to impact artillery or thunder or, whatever that you can, acoustic timing. How far away was that event? If you can see and hear them and had the presence of mind to hit start on your stopwatch, then yeah, the telemeter will tell you how far away that event occurred, which was used a lot during World War One and Two because it allowed you to know how far away artillery was being fired at you from. Because you'd see the flash and then you'd hear the cannon fire, and then the telemeter would tell you how far away that artillery was. Very practical, technology, which is why they used it. The three main stopwatch subdials, um, tachymeter, right? Speed, telemeter, sound and distance, and forgot pulsometer. And for doctors to time how fast your heart was beating, you know. Stopwatches are quite useful and they're cool. And well, this has got the diving timer in it. Although this one moves way too easy, but that's a known flaw or characterization. It gives character to the watch, right? That's what they say. But it's got the inner rotating timing bezel, and any dive watch can be used as a jackleg stopwatch because it'll at least tell you to the minute how long an event has taken. Hey, Peter, how's it going, my watch brother? Great guy, he really is. And he's had some very cool content on the site lately. You should definitely check out his channel. Brett, Johnny, everyone saying hi to Peter. Of course, say hi. 'Cause it's like the, young comedian. Actually, I'm the old watch guy, but I'm, the beginning, the starting comedian, and then, like, somebody really cool walks in and sits at the table in the back. You're like, "Wow." 'Cause, I do have a high level of respect for what Peter has done with his, channel. And so, there are other functionalities in a watch that people don't think about, like when people say vertical clutch chronograph. Okay, I've heard it's better in most ways, but why? And um, and I also have videos on that in the Watch Basics, but then uh, Peter does as well. So, most of the good pundits have at least talked about primary watch functionality, and so I really encourage you to search those out. And if you don't know, or you don't, you'd like to get deeper into it, the more you learn about the core technologies behind the watch complications, the functionalities, then number one, you'll be able to evaluate them better because you know what they're supposed to do and why they do it and how they do it. And also, it helps you understand why it's important, why this costs more, why is it worth the trouble to do this? Why make the rotor weight on a winding watch out of tungsten? Because it's denser than steel. It has a little bit more weight. It's not as expensive as gold. It's not as messy as lead. Although you'll find lead slugs inside of cheap rotors of some watches, because the more weight you have in the rotor, the more power you have in the swing, and the more you can effectively wind the watch. But yeah, this has got a tungsten rotor in it. Um, the more pricier brethren of this family have gold rotors. Some have platinum rotors. Some have gold rotors with a platinum insert screwed on the outer edge, depending on the price point or the price range. Because some people don't like the use of the term price point, but the the higher up you go, the more exotic things get for everything. You know, but it's fun to evaluate all of that and understand why it's important. And uh, the more you know, also fewer shenanigans you can be exposed to because you can smell, liars and charlatans, because nine times out of 10, they're not going to tell you something that makes sense if you understand how the core technologies in these functionalities work, and it also, like I said, helps you evaluate what you're going to buy, be it vintage or modern. So, and when it comes to functionalities and complications, the second point that I wanted to talk about, before we closed out for the evening, although we're rolling along quite nicely. It's about 25 minutes into the show, and we're probably going to roll for at least another 15 or 20. So we'll get at least the guts of the hour out. And like I said, depending on responses, we may go the whole hour. But who knew I would get, talking about jewels into a 25-minute rant? But then I did go off on a couple of tangents, and hopefully they were informative to you. But the other thing I wanted to talk about was the rise of the GMT, because I can remember when GMTs were rare. And when I was first starting out as a serious collector, because I've always loved watches. I got a watch in second grade for my Catholic communion present, and I was really proud, big person watch and all of that other good stuff. And I always owned one good watch, but my money went into cars. My my father owned a garage and gas station in Brooklyn, and I'm a jackleg mechanic myself. And I used to buy beat up Porsches and fix them up and drive them until I couldn't fix them myself anymore, and I'd save money because I could do all the labor myself. But that $2,000 exhaust system, you're never getting that money back, not even at 50 cents on the dollar. Um, Ditto for the tires, air filters, oil. I mean, any one of you who own a car know exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to maintenance. And cars are like watches, except more money. Oh, and so I didn't start getting into watches in earnest until I sold my last, personal car about 7, 8 years ago, and that's when I really started, because I took the money from the car sale, and I bought a couple of watches with that, and the rest is history, as they say. But, when I first started, GMTs, there weren't many out there. There really weren't, and not too many people paid attention to them either. I'd even go to boutiques at like an airport duty free for brands that I knew had a GMT in their lineup, and like they weren't even any on display. You and all of a sudden now they're all here, which is good. But for a while it was like nothing, and then everybody's got a GMT in their lineup. And just recently, because of both Citizen with Miyota and Seiko, in the Seiko 5 line, having starter level GMTs for people who don't have a big budget but want a functional quality GMT, you can get one now in either the Seiko 5 or the Bulova, Wilford, the Citizen's got a new GMT out, and a lot of the micro brands have come out with GMTs based on both the Miyota and the Seiko movement. So you've got a good choice of office GMTs and travel GMTs out there. I also don't believe that you should call a travel GMT a true GMT, because any watch that you can independently set one or the other of the hour hands is a true GMT because it can track two independent hours. Um, Travel GMTs are more functional for people who travel. But then again, if you don't travel a lot, an office GMT is more functional if you have, say, for example, international clients, or you live in one continent and your mom lives in another, and you want to make sure you know what time it is when you call her, or you don't wake her up instead of, just wishing her a nice afternoon. So, but GMTs have really, really exploded on the scene now, to the point where every major watch company's got one, and I don't even have a reason why, unless the industry heard me yelling around in duty free. But I'm guessing more people than me started doing that, because if you think about it, international travel keeps going up. And the type of people who do that international travel, a lot of them wear smartwatches. But there are also people who do international travel who like to wear a nice handed watch, preferably mechanical. But like I said, if it's got hands, I'll take quartz at this point. Um, and I guess all of us complaining over time got to them, and they started making it. But the industry now is full of GMTs. What are your thoughts on that? Let's see. Peter, what's my thoughts and preference? Travel or GMT for me, because I do travel. I'll be in the States at least twice next year, or this coming year. This year, we're in January. Like, January is almost over, in fact. Um, my Breitling is a caller GMT, an office GMT, and I love that, but I love it for what it is, the beautiful Navitimer. And to me, the GMT is icing on the cake on that watch. So I'm not worried that it's not a travel GMT, because for me, I would, I accept it on the Breitling, but frankly, I'm really glad that my IWC GMT is a travel GMT, and I'm blanking on my other. I have at least one other, because I did sell my Seamaster GMT, which was also a travel GMT. I really do. I'm a big fan of a travel GMT. I really am. Um, I think, but then again, like I said, I actually do travel. My mom lives in New York. I wind up going to LA on business. And actually now I'm actually thinking I used to have the Longines Zulu time, which had a rotating bezel. I need to get myself a rotating bezel watch because sometimes I need to track 3 time zones. And or maybe I get my hands on, the Frederic Constant High Life World Timer, because I had the old World Timer, which is, as I still believe, is the best world time dress watch for under 8,000 right now. And that's a beautiful piece. I think the Omega World Timer, the Aquaterra, is a little busy, and legibility is also important with that. Although that's more of a GMT watch that's also a world timer, as opposed to a true world timer. I shouldn't say, because it is true. It does tell you the different times in the different cities. But I don't know. I like the Frederic Constant presentation better than I like the Omega presentation. Although I know that the globe in the center is all laser etched titanium and all that good stuff. But yeah, but to answer your direct question, Peter, I favor the travel GMT because yeah, I'm a traveler. I do international calls, but as you see, I got my trusty New York, LA, Frankfurt clocks on the wall. Although I do have redundancy because I keep that on regular local time as well. I should change one of these, but then I didn't have to go make another sign to put under it. But if I had local, I should do, yeah, local time on this and then put 3 other time zones. It's mirrored on the screen here. I'm sorry. Um, Change one of those time zones out. Maybe throw Chicago up there. Have it then Chicago, New York, Chicago, LA. Well, actually, the shop that I got the signs from is still open. I should just go and get myself another sign saying Chicago on it, and have this for local time, and then these would be. I have then 4 time zones in the room. I mean, I do have on the little weather station thing over here the actual time, but that's the GPS time. That's what I used to set everything else in the house with. Although all of my other wall clocks, except for these here, all of my other wall clocks, I have one in the bathroom and one in the kitchen. Those are radio controlled because, why not have a radio controlled wall clock? You can set your watch on it. Let's see. Hey, Victor, how's it going? Nice to see you from Sweden. Very cool, my friend. It's always nice to know how big our collective circle is. Because as I've always said, this channel would be nothing without you all participating. You know, it's all about the community that we're creating that I'm very pleased with. I mean, it's not like I even expect it to be an exclusive community. I want you to watch everybody because the nice part about it is we're all on at different times and we're all recorded anyway. So you could take your time and watch us all because we all have a different perspective. We all see things. There could be 4 different reviews of the same watch and they're going to focus on different aspects of the watch, the 4 different reviewers. So yeah, you should definitely watch as many of us as you can, but of course, include me in the rotation. Oh, Hannes, hey, how's it going, my friend? Good evening. It's pretty rare to see a GMT in the wild, but you see them more often now, especially now that you can get the Bulova. For example, they have that Devil Diver GMT. Um, Now that you have the Seiko 5 GMT, I've seen them in stores. You don't see a lot of the higher end ones. You're absolutely right. But I think now it's more because people are buying them up as opposed to the companies not offering them out. Because I remember when the Zulu came out, and actually, if you go to some of the higher end the bigger Longines shops, you'll see one or another GMT, either the Hydro Conquest now or the Zulu time. I really was thinking of getting myself the Hydro Conquest GMT, but now my sights have pivoted. I wasn't planning on buying anything, and now I'm actually looking at buying 2 pieces. I'm getting the Omega Memo Vox, I think it is called, the alarm watch, and I have to. I'm trying to get my hands on one right now. Is the Bulova lunar pilot with the meteorite dial. I mean, that's a no-brainer. I shouldn't say no-brainer. You're still talking they want like 1,500 for it. That's not an insignificant amount of money, but that's not a bad price. That's not a bad price for a legitimate legacy Moonwatch design from the company that issued it with a meteorite dial for 1,500. You know, for me, I have a Speedmaster, yeah, and got a couple of moon swatches, but that would be a cool one to get. And now I just heard that Swatch is probably going to come out with a Snoopy moon swatch, and so now I got to buy that too. I shouldn't say I have to buy that. I'm kind of joking, but yeah, there's some really nice pieces coming out in the near future, and I do eventually. I think I will get the Hydro Conquest GMT because I'd like to have a Longines in the collection, and that's a nice piece. And I had the Zulu Time, which was a very nice piece, but I want to sell my Rado Captain Cook and buy a different diver, and so I wanted to get the Hydro Conquest if I sell the Captain Cook. So if any of you need a Captain Cook chrono, I've got one for sale cheap. Let's see. JFD Omega, how's it going? How's it going? Alex, talking about jewels, hammers, and such really made me realize I know about my watches. Oh, thank you, my friend. Well, I'm a geek. I got to know how it works. If I don't know how it works, I poke until I do know how it works. My day job, I don't know. Some of you know, some of you don't. I write about embedded electronics. I'm editor at large for electronic design and microwaves and RF magazines, which are trade magazines for electronic design engineers. So I can't bullshit them. How can I do that to you all? You know, that wouldn't be fun. And I take my journalism role very seriously, and so I want to make sure that what I deliver to you is of as high a quality as anything I would deliver to my professional audience, and you're just as worthy of that respect and edification because the more you know, the better you are, the more a better a participant in the marketplace, you know, and it makes then the market runs better. The more educated consumers in the market, it's harder on the retailers, but it also sharpens them. You know, it's not a destructive criticism if these are all people who care about the craft. You know, they're not criticizing to criticize; they're criticizing because they want something better. So yeah, the more educated the clientele is, the more educated the marketplace is. In my humble opinion, that's the better for the industry. So the more I can teach you all and others, like I said, check out everybody's. Um, there are a lot of really good people out there talk even I shouldn't say even because I do respect him, Bill Sanders over at Watch Art Sci. I don't agree with him on silicon hairsprings, although he has expanded his position and has stated it to a point where I can completely respect where he's coming from on that. Um, and he's a great source of horological information as well. You know, there are a lot of really good people out there. Teddy Baldessar, Peter Katza, you know, and we all provide different angles, different parallax viewpoints on all of these things. And maybe between several of us, you get the complete picture. But yeah, um, it, it, it's always good to get multiple viewpoints on anything because some reviewers like caller GMTs. Some very reputable watch people prefer callers because they don't travel. They call people around the world, so it's useful to them to be able to change the GMT hand instead of the local time hand. You know, one man's fish is another man's poisson. To do a double layered bad food pun. Let's see, Johnny. Incredibly small sized women's wrist GMT are rarer than gold bricks. Oh, that's a good point. It's like a 36 millimeter GMT. Although I think now you can get the Zulu Time in a 38. Um, I think there are a couple now. Oh, some of the micro brands are 38 millimeter GMTs, which I realize is not like dainty, but a lot of women wear larger sizes, and a 38 would work on a 6-inch, 6.5-inch wrist, in my opinion. Um, you can always put it on a bund strap to bulk up the wrist presence so it doesn't look like the watch is overbearing your wrist. It looks like you're wearing a nice wrist bracer and there just happens to be a watch attached to it. So what are we looking at? Oh, we still got a little bit of time. Hey, Neil, how's it going, my friend? Hey, L Train. So, yeah, I think that the trend towards having more GMTs available I, serves a need. As I said, there are a lot of people doing telepresence now too. They might be working in Tennessee and their bosses are in California. It never hurts to have a watch that shows a second time zone. And like I said, a smartwatch will tell you that, but some people don't like to wear smartwatches. Some people, either from the fact that they don't want to know Apple to know every time they scratch their behind, to people who just prefer the aesthetics of a mechanical piece. Like, I'm going to definitely wear that Omega alarm watch at a trade show and use it to time meetings because that'll remind everybody at the table I got to run, myself especially, because I sometimes, if I'm not looking at a watch constantly, I miss my appointments because trade shows are very busy and attractive distractions. But yeah, it's nice to have a mechanical, or even, like I said, a quartz watch with an electronic beeper in it. Why not? But please have the watch have hands. That's my last line in the sand. If it doesn't have hands, then it is a digital display. Well, in the case of a digital display quartz watch like a Casio F91 or something like that, they fall into that interesting period of time when quartz watches were extremely functional. But like I've said before, Apple wound up winning the quartz wars. Watches now are just another interesting way to tell time. Uh, a dedicated quartz watch nowadays is as antiquated. Never mind. As vintage as a mechanical presentation. The whole aspect of being useful while still being quaint, interesting, different will never lose novelty. I mean, think about, you don't need a fountain pen today, but I mean, here in Germany, they still have kids use fountain pens in school to learn proper handwriting. Because actually, a fountain pen, there's less writer's fatigue than with a ballpoint because you're constantly pressing with a ballpoint, and with a fountain pen, you're not. In fact, you don't want to press on a fountain pen. So you're just gliding the tip across the paper. I use a fountain pen for my to-do list, you know? So GMTs scratch that itch. They're nice pieces, but they're still functional. They do something you need. You need to know what time it is here and what time it is there, and you got to call in 20 minutes. That's the nice thing about having a piece like that. Or let's say you're going to the beach, you can wear your GMT diver to the beach and leave your phone in the safe in your hotel room and not worry about anything happening to it. And you still know what time it is here and you still know what time it is there. And you can get it wet if you have to. So I'm really glad that GMT watches have become a thing in the industry. I really am, because they do fill a real need. And also by providing an alternative, they give people a different choice. Just the fact that they exist increase the number of sales because more people are exposed to that as an alternative to what everybody else is wearing. And sometimes that's enough. So let's see. Um, that was pretty much all I had to talk about this evening. And as I've always said, I don't like to have the episode drag on unless the conversation is rolling. And we've been talking now for about 45. So I don't feel bad if we call it an early evening. So everybody take care. Love you all. Have a fantastic week. And if you have an idea for next week's episode, and I'll really think of something good, probably keep an eye on whatever the news is and talk about it. And maybe I'll look into the whole thing with France and the fine against Rolex or something like that. But I'll have something good for next week. I promise. Take care, everybody.